Hello, and welcome to this Cloud Lunch and Learn marathon session on Universal Print: What, Why, and How. My name is Alan Kinnan. I'm a Cloud Solutions Architect and a Microsoft Certified Trainer from Dublin, Ireland. You can find my blog and Twitter details on screen. Please do get in contact if you have any questions on the session. So this session is the what, why, and how of Universal Print. So first of all, we're going to cover what is Universal Print. Then we're going to talk about why you might want to use Universal Print. And then finally, how you would go and set it up. So what is Universal Print? Well, first and foremost, it's a cloud-based print service used to manage your printer infrastructure from a centralized location. And the main reason why Universal Print was created was as a replacement for hybrid cloud print. Hybrid cloud print is a service used to connect your traditional Active Directory environment with your modern Azure Active Directory cloud-based environment in a hybrid format. And this is a very common setup for most organizations nowadays as we move more and more from a traditional on-premises environment into the cloud. Licensing is done through Microsoft 365, so it's all cloud-based licensing, and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail later on. In terms of support, Universal Print has actually been supported on Windows 10 devices from build 1903 onwards, so it's actually built directly into the operating system, so there's nothing really to set up on the client level, which is great. In terms of the print jobs themselves, they're all spooled in the cloud print service itself, so the spooling does not happen on the local devices, it all happens in the cloud. This means there's actually no requirement for local print drivers to be installed, so no more drivers are installed on the local print devices. It's all handled through an IPP printing protocol directly into the cloud, which makes things much easier from the IT department's point of view. The print jobs themselves are encrypted in transit using TLS 1.2, so all those important documents are encrypted before they leave your devices and get sent to that cloud print service. And many printer manufacturers nowadays have native firmware support built directly into the printers, which means you can actually enable those devices for Universal Print directly. For older devices, legacy printers, they can still be connected to Universal Print, but you need to connect them via a print connector device, and we'll cover that in more detail also. And just as an overview of the Universal Print service, you can see here Universal Print devices that have native support connect directly to the Universal Print cloud service, whereas legacy devices that don't have native support connect via a Universal Print connector into the Universal Print service. The endpoint devices that you're actually printing from, again, access that Universal Print service directly. There's no need for direct connectivity to the actual printers. And this is all managed via registration through Azure Active Directory. So the devices would be registered there, as would the printers. Printers are published out and shared to those users via Azure AD groups. And then all those print jobs can be managed directly in the Universal Print service via the cloud. So why would I want to use Universal Print? Well, here's why. You no longer need a requirement for print server infrastructure. So traditionally this would be a virtual machine where all your printers are installed. If you're in a Windows environment, they would be published via Active Directory. There's no longer that need for that infrastructure. You no longer have a need to maintain printer drivers. So if you're a large organization with many different types of printers, with lots of different driver types, these all have to be installed and maintained and kept up to date, and that can become very difficult at scale. This is no longer required due to the modern printing protocols that Universal Print uses. You have direct Azure Active Directory integration, so nowadays we're using Azure AD more and more to integrate our users and our devices. So we're just plugging in an additional service to this. The printers themselves registered directly on Azure AD, which means you no longer have a requirement for traditional Active Directory environments. There's no requirement for the user's endpoint device and the printer to be on the same network, so you don't need to be connected via VPN or anything like that. As long as you have access to the internet and as long as the printer itself can connect to the internet, you can print to that device through Universal Print. So overall, this is a great option for organizations who are migrating to the cloud and who are looking to reduce their infrastructure and their number of virtual machines. There's no longer a need for a dedicated print server role on a virtual machine. You can simply move this straight to the cloud using Universal Print. And here on this slide, you can see already the number of popular printer manufacturers who already have native support for Universal Print, and this list is growing rapidly. So finally, how do I set up Universal Print? Well, before we get to that all-important demo, just a few prerequisites to go through first of all. So I mentioned already, licensing is done through Microsoft 365. So the most popular way to do this is going to be using those Microsoft 365 SKUs themselves. So Microsoft 365 Business Premium, E3, E5, and so on. With those licenses, you get a license entitlement for Universal Print. However, they can be purchased as a separate standalone license SKU should you wish. Now, it's important to note here that each license entitles the organization to 5 print jobs per month. So that means that this is not a free service. It's a service provided by Microsoft, but you need a license for it, and that license gives you a limited number of print jobs. Now, those jobs are pooled across all users. So if you have, for example, 100 users all licensed for Universal Print, that would be a total of 500 print jobs for the organization per month. So that's shared across all users in the organization. And a print job is just that, it's a print job. It's not a set number of pages or anything like that. It's just an actual print job. If you consume all of your print jobs, you cannot use the service any further that month unless you buy an add-on bundle. So you can buy additional add-on print jobs. They come in bundles of 500 per month, and you can buy as many of those as your organization requires. Now, the service is currently only available in a subset of Azure regions, but that doesn't mean you can't use it if you're not in one of those Azure regions. So as long as you have a region in your local geography, you'll be able to use Universal Print. It's important to note that Microsoft will not move your data outside of your local geography. So if you're in a European region, your print jobs, your data will not leave that European region. And likewise, if you're in a US region, it will not leave the US geography. More and more regions will be onboarded shortly. This service only went GA in early March 2021. Your endpoint devices, so the devices you're actually printing from, must be joined to Azure Active Directory. They can be hybrid joined, so you can have them joined to traditional Active Directory, but they must also be joined to Azure Active Directory, or they can simply only be joined to Azure Active Directory. But it's not sufficient to just have Active Directory joined devices. They will not be able to use the Universal Print service. The printers themselves are registered to Azure AD also, and from there they are shared out to those Azure AD user groups that you determine. And the printers can be manually added by the users themselves to their endpoints, or you can provision them by using a tool such as Microsoft Endpoint Manager, formerly known as Intune. So with that, let's jump straight into the demo and see how this gets set up. Okay, so here we are in the Azure portal. That's portal.azure.com. And all you need to do is do a search for Universal Print and you'll see this page here. So I'm just on the overview screen here. I have nothing set up already. I have no printers, nothing shared out, and I have no print connectors installed. And that's pretty much all I can see here. As I've said, if you do have a printer with native Universal Print support, you can go directly into the web interface of that printer and register directly with Universal Print. It works just via a code sharing mechanism, so it'll give you a code ID that you enter in here and verify that you own that printer. What I'm going to demonstrate today is how do you set up a legacy printer using the print connector. So to do that, I need a device that has access to the local printers. So it needs to be on the same network as the local printers. That can be over a VPN if you wish, which means you can host it in Microsoft Azure if you want to, and access it over a VPN or an express route. As long as it can talk to your network printers, you can use that as your connector. Now that connector has to be a Windows machine. It can be Windows Server 2016 or newer, or it can be a Windows 10 machine, build 1809 or newer. it is recommended to have that machine on 24/7 because there's no point in putting it on someone's Windows 10 device, and if they shut that down at the end of the day, then it won't be able to talk to any of the printers and no one will be able to use the service. So that machine would need to be on 24/7, but it doesn't have to be a Windows Server machine. So for licensing reasons, you can just use a Windows 10 device. Okay, so I'm just going to connect to a Windows 10 device that I have on my corporate network now. That means it will have access to all of my network printers. So here we are, this is my Windows 10 machine on my corporate network. I have the Universal Print Connector software downloaded to the desktop. So I'm just going to install this now and show you how quick and easy this is to deploy. Really only takes a few seconds to install the print connector. And there we go, that's done. I'm just going to launch that now. And the first thing you'll see is this dialog box here. You'll see the connectors installed and running, and then you'll have to sign into your organization's account. So you'll need to use a global admin account here to sign into your tenant. Once you're signed in, you will see this registration box here. You'll have to give your print connector a name. You can have multiple connectors installed, by the way. It doesn't have to be just a single connector on your network. And this could be good for resilience as well. So I'm just going to give this a name. And I'm just going to register that with the Universal Print Service. Now this process can take a little bit of time. Now once that registers, you will see some available printers here. An important step to note here is that these printers need to be installed locally on this print connector device. So you need to actually install these printers or add these printers to this particular machine, otherwise they won't show up here. If they're not there, you can just install them and then just click on refresh printers and it will check again. But I've got a couple of printers here already that I can use for my demonstration. So what I'm going to do here is just select both of these printers and click on the register button. That's now registering those printers in Azure Active Directory and with the Universal Print Service. This process can take several minutes, so we might just time lapse here. Okay, those printers are both registered here now. You can see them there. And that's really it for the print connector. There's nothing more to do here. They are registered with the service now. So if I return to the Azure portal, now if I click on my printers, as you can see, I've got my two on-premises printers registered with Universal Print there. Now you can see the status is saying not shared. That means no users currently have access to these printers. So the next step is to share these with your users. Usually the best way to do this is either share them with all users if you have a small organization, but you can just put your users into different security groups and share with groups. Always better to share with groups rather than individual users because it becomes very difficult to maintain. So if you need to split these up by departments or whatever way you need to do it, by building or geography or whatever, just put your users into the most appropriate groups and share them out with those group members. So I'm just going to go ahead now and share out these printers. I'm going to select the two printers and just share them both out. And as you can see, I have an option here to share them with everyone in the organization, or I can search for individual members or groups here. For this demo, I'll just share them with everyone. Click on the share printer option and just wait for that to share out with the users. There we go, they are both shared now, as you can see there. And if I click on printer shares, I can see them there also. That's it now. It's really that simple. All I need to do is add the printers to my devices. That can be done using something like Microsoft Endpoint Manager if you want to automate that process. But just for this demo today, I'll just show you how you can manually add that printer and print to it. I've just got my printers and scanners open on my own device here. I'm just going to add a printer here. You can see already it's picked up 2 cloud printers. So you can actually search here for Universal Print printers. It's already found them here. I've got my two devices here. So let me just select one of them here and add that device. So it's going to connect to that service. And remember, I didn't have to deploy any print drivers anywhere for this. It's just going to set it up on my device and print to it using the IPP print protocol. So no device drivers required for the printers. And that's it. It's ready to go. I can send print jobs to that straight away. Let me just do that quickly and show you how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to just print it to this particular printer here. So you can see all the information from the printer has been registered with Universal Print. There's a very useful feature here called Swap Printer. This can be used whenever you need to replace a printer, even for a completely different make and model. The feature will simply swap the old printer share for the new one without having any impact on the users. Print jobs will appear here, so we'll see that momentarily when I send the job to the printer. I've got some additional print properties in here, some share information. This is an interesting one. You can actually put in GPS coordinates, longitude and latitude coordinates. So if you're a big organization, you can actually locate the printers by GPS coordinates and find your closest printer through that. Could be quite useful. And then some default settings for your printers that you can set in here as well. So as you can see, it is a full managed print service. It is new. There are some limitations to this. There are some known issues with it, but this service will improve more and more as time goes on. I've got the access control here. If you remember, I've given access to all my users, but you can lock that down as you wish there. And this just shows you the print connectors that are used to set this up. So let's just leave that on print jobs there. Here's a file that I would like to print. So I'm just going to click on the print icon, make sure I choose the correct printer, which is this one here. Click the print button. As you see, that's preparing the print job. Remember, the spool's directly in the cloud service here, so it should appear here very shortly. There we go. Print job is there. Status of pending. There we go. Print job is completed. And that's it. It's really that simple to set this up. Just to go back a step, I can go back to my printers here. If I go to usage and reports, I'll be able to see I've got one print job, the one I just sent, done there. Thankfully, I've got plenty of remaining print jobs in stock, so I'll be okay there. But this is how you can track your print jobs and keep tabs on how much of your quota you've used to date. And that's pretty much it. So this service only went into general availability in early March 2021. So it's really going to be out for about 6 weeks at the time of recording. So still very much in its infancy. I would expect this service to improve and improve as time goes on and more features to be added. One potential issue I see is 5 print jobs per user per month isn't really a lot when you think about it. So you're kind of being forced into buying those add-on bundles as it stands. But I would expect Microsoft will probably increase that number as more users and organizations start to use Universal Print. But right now it's pretty good, I think. It certainly means you don't need to use those virtual machines anymore for your print servers. Unless you've got very specific requirements. I think this is an ideal replacement. You can potentially completely do away with hybrid cloud print and manage everything fully in the cloud, which is really the way most organizations want to go these days. So just to sum up then, what have we learned about Universal Print today? Well, it's a fully managed cloud service. You register the printers, share the printers, manage the printers, all in the cloud portal. Even the print usage reporting is all done from a cloud native portal. You can print to any internet connected printers in your organization, either through using native Universal Print integration in the printer firmware or via a print connector device on your corporate network. Main thing to remember here is your device, your endpoint that you're printing from, must be Azure AD joined. or hybrid joined. There's no requirement to install printer drivers anymore. The IPP protocol takes care of all of that, so no more printer drivers required on the devices. Licensing is per user and through Microsoft 365 licensing, and your printers are registered and then shared out through Azure Active Directory security groups. So that's the end of my session. I hope you found it useful. I hope you learned something about Universal Print. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions, and please also enjoy the rest of the Cloud Lunch and Learn Marathon. Thank you.